All right, a little bit on Ban the Box. State Ban the Box came into effect in January, and Portland Ban the Box came in July. And this is another one that has been sweeping the country in states and municipalities. Oregon's is a fairly typical one. Portland's goes a little bit beyond the norm. So Oregon, this is kind of a fairly standard ban the box. The idea is that employers should at least provide a chance for people with criminal backgrounds to get their foot in the door. You know, not to be completely not considered from the start. So it generally says you can't have that checkbox on the application, you can't ask on the application, but then at the interview or after the interview, you are free to then ask about that criminal history as you were before. Definitely be consistent though. If you are going to do it, make sure that you're doing it consistently. And then Portland's a little bit tougher because it's unique in that it postpones an employer's ability to ask not just till that interview, but actually until a conditional offer is made. And so you're pretty far along in the process before you're even allowed to ask whether there is any criminal history there. And if you're going to ask, first of all, be consistent in who you're asking. And second, there's then this requirement that you have to do an individualized assessment of any criminal history information that you receive. And what that includes, we're not super sure about yet, so just know that that is there. And if you are going to be asking about criminal convictions after that conditional offer, make sure that you have a very good process in place in terms of what criteria then you're using to either use that as a discounting factor for employment or not. So make sure you have a good policy there. So that kind of wraps up.
So
yep.
on your job postings, we work with vulnerable populations, so we're required by DHS to do the criminal background check. So on our job postings, we do have that, you know, we must.
So these do not apply if there are legal requirements that you have that. So vulnerable populations where you have that requirement from another agency to actually do those. Another one is DOT, Department of Transportation. Sometimes they have some additional requirements around things. And so this does not apply to if you have a proactive reason that you're doing it based on other requirements, state or federal.
So are they clear about, do they list out which types of criminal offenses would fall into that category, or is it just anything?
So that individualized assessment is the language from the statute in terms of what you need to do in terms of considering how to use that information. So it does not give specifics like you should be considering these offenses or you shouldn't consider these offenses. It just says you have to make that individualized assessment. So I think that there's a reasonable chance we'll see some court cases at some point on it. But until then, we're all kind of just doing our best to make sure. And that's why I said having a good policy in place will give you some backup if you ever do get called out on a decision that you've made. If you have kind of, we made this decision because X, Y, Z, and we apply those same factors to everyone. That's going to be more defensible than saying, oh, well, this person, this manager saw that he had, you know, this criminal conviction against him and decided that that manager didn't want him on the team, but this other manager allowed someone with that same thing to come on.
So if your practice had been to do like a preliminary online background check prior to a conditional offer, that actually needs to stop. And even just an online check where you're not asking but you're just doing the standard look would need to happen after the conditional offer.
Yeah, so you cannot be asking about that, any of that criminal convictions before a conditional offer.
seems all of a sudden there's a few loose things that are coming to mind. Because so doing a search, let's say for a particular position, and you have, if there's someone who has a criminal record around anything that would disqualify them from working with children, that's different than somebody disqualified because they're doing some financial problem issue. Some organization might say that wouldn't disqualify them. Some might say this law is saying you can't be cut out at the front end until you're ready, gone through everything, and now I'm going to offer you, but it's conditional on your criminal record coming back acceptable.
Yes.
Plus, acceptable has to be somehow the assessment of that individual, yes or no, has to be solid.
Yes.
Or defendable.
Yes.
So there's two things that have come up. One was, if you say you can't work here, if you have any issue with that would be disqualifying because of working with children, do you have to say what those, like, any criminal record, you don't apply for this job, or you can't say any of that in your online notice? We hire people on the condition that they're not having a disqualifying criminal record working with children. Could you say that, or is that in itself, because it says that state won't let me hire without a criminal record checking? Trying to be clear about
Right, right.
Can you up front say, we're going to do a criminal record check? We say that anyway in our employment. We say, the final offer will be based on criminal record check. So you're
Right.
saying that.
Yes, you can, that, you can't ask them to respond to
Right,
it.
exactly.
But if you've said it, then that would be part of like all offers of employment will be contingent upon that. And if you want to be specific about things that will certainly disqualify, you can do that as well.